The left will never stop their agenda to take over America. You are their enemy, and they will not negotiate. Prepare yourselves. Welcome to the Blue Shark Show with your host, Mike Lang.
Let's look at Sarah Fields, and she's got a tweet out there. And this is incredible. I knew it would get to this. From all these things in school, from CRT to LGBTQ to gay marriage to everything else, now we have an English teacher, Franklin High School, El Paso, Texas, of all places, instructing the students, don't judge people because they want to have sex with a 5-year-old, and tells kids that, her kids in the class, that these are minor attracted persons. MAPS.
All right, for 1 second, I'm not going to even talk about the fact that a school teacher just told students not to look down on somebody for being a pedophile. I'm not going to even talk about that for a second. What I'm going to talk about is obviously some things have gone off the rails way before this ever happened. And kind of like the other school situations we've had here lately, the questions that these issues lead to are sometimes just as important as the questions themselves. How did this teacher ever get the idea for 1 second that this was going to be an acceptable thing to stay in the classroom? That's where did she get that direction from?
Probably from her university education. You know, postmodernism has been in our colleges for a long time, and I think this woman's probably a product of that postmodernism that says there is no right or wrong, everything's subjective, there is no truth, ugly is beautiful, black is white, up is down. This is the type of insanity that we're seeing in our public education system, and it's sad that this is in a public school in Texas, and you have a woman that's so
woke,
bewitched by PC culture and wokeism that she's now trying to say that the word pedophile is offensive, and y'all just need to say minor attracted persons. We need to stop neutering our language and call spades spades.
And, you know, you look at the kids in that class, and they were going back and forth saying no. You know, they were disgusted with this and with that teacher. And that teacher, frankly, she has no business teaching grade school, high school, wherever she's at.
She is perpetuating the cycle of child sexual abuse, and for that to be coming, I wish I had that teacher's name because I would be writing some angry emails. There is no place for that woman to be anywhere near kids, or anyone else that espouses that mentality has no place being around children.
That's a pure groomer right there.
100%.
Well, and there needs to be an investigation into her, how this got in her classroom, who told her this was okay. And anybody who's involved with this needs to lose their job, lose their licenses. They don't need to be in front of kids.
No. And let's listen to the video that we have that was brought into this classroom and where El Paso schools are going. And frankly, all the public schools. You know, what makes this teacher thinks it's okay? Let's listen to the video.
You're not allowed to label people like that.
What?
Stop it, Diego.
Yeah, no,
We're not going to call them that. We're going to call them MAPS.
No.
Minor attracted persons.
No.
So don't judge people just because they want to have sex with a 5-year-old.
Don't judge people just because they want to have sex with 5-year-olds. This is a public school freaking teacher in a classroom, and you have students saying no, because the students know this is wrong. This is evil.
There's not enough strongly worded language. There's not enough angry faces. There's not enough disgust to even begin to express how I feel about someone held up as an instructor of children, misleading them like this. I don't have words for it.
You know, and I will say this. I don't have the full context of that video. And the only way that I could see this perhaps, which I don't think this is the case, but perhaps it would be okay for them to say is if this were some sort of debate class and she were playing the devil's advocate. But that is not the way I understand it, the way this class is going. Mm-hmm. She is not only pushing her beliefs on these kids, but she is trying to tell them that it's okay for people to be attracted and pursue sex with children. This is disgusting.
And this, okay, number one, this was an English teacher, okay? This wasn't a social studies teacher. This wasn't a health teacher. This was an English teacher. So this should be about, you know, comp and rhetoric and spelling and sentence structure. Why in the hell is she talking about sex with kids in an English class, even in any context. There is no context, there is no context possible where this could be acceptable. Even
None.
the topic alone, let alone the fact that she can't understand the fact that pedophilia is wrong.
This teacher needs to be fired, like I said, and whoever is above her needs to be seriously looked at. All those classrooms need to be checked to see what the heck's going on. When you have kids in that classroom and it sounds like a female voice saying, "Stop it, no," and at the end of that clip, somebody's, WTF is what this guy said. And so you've got these kids in this classroom that are just appalled at what this teacher's saying. And if it's in El Paso, Texas, it's in a lot more classrooms around the state of Texas and around this country. And this is what I've been talking about with, the show has been talking about all the LGBTQ, all the gay marriage. You guys accept this. We're going to force this on you. You're going to have to celebrate this. You're going to have to celebrate this. And we told people, this is next. Minor attracted persons. This is next. And sure enough, we've got it in a high school.
And, Rush Limbaugh, rest in peace, he said this about 20-something years ago. He said, guys, I'm telling you, it's going to start with normalizing LGBT. It's going to start with, or just LGs at the time. It's going to start with gay marriage, and then it's going to go to transvestites, and then it's going to go to pedophiles, and then it's just going to go from there to the darkest stuff you can even imagine sexually.
And what do you expect? What do you expect with porn and smut in the school libraries? And we've been talking about that. And, people just bury their head in the sand. A lot of the trustees, school board people, school board presidents, if you have a school board and nobody's spoken up in the state of Texas or anywhere, get rid of them. It's time to get rid of them just for this fact.
And not only speaking up, that's a great start, but unfortunately, we have a lot of trustees that'll say all the right things. Here locally, Dr. Paula McDonald, has said that, we need to stir the water and we need to take stands and we need to stand on our biblical principles. And she has not done those things. It's easy to say the right things, but we need people that are willing to roll up their sleeves, make the tough choices, and do the right things and stop kowtowing to the liberals.
Well, I hate to say it, but if this situation happened here, I'm afraid that we'd have our school board wringing their hands, not sure what to do about this teacher. I'm really curious to see how El Paso is going to handle this, because unfortunately, there's a lot of school boards out there, even ones that claim to be Republican, that are going to sit on their hands and not know what to do.
They're going to have a committee, and they're going to put together a committee of all the people that like the maps and say there's nothing wrong with the maps. And then it'll go to the school board, and the school board will say, hey, we can't do anything because of the attorneys, and we're going to get sued through ACLU.
They're pedos. They're not maps. They're pedophiles.
Exactly.
Well, maps also, I consider that a 1984 newspeak term. It wasn't, I don't know, a month ago when I say maybe I first heard the phrase map, and all of a sudden it's popping up in a classroom. The news cycle isn't the only thing that's shortening around the world. The way that the newspeak is being interjected and absorbed in a society is it's unbelievable. These words that would have caused people to pull out weapons in the past and do something about it are now getting little catchphrases, and teachers are just talking about them like they're nothing in class.
They're more than pedophiles. And yes, minor attracted people, maps, whatever they want to call them. When you have a teacher saying, quote, don't judge people because they want to have sex with a 5-year-old, there's nothing right about that. And every single person ought to be so upset in El Paso and everywhere else that they demand that teacher be gone.
Gone and then some. There's I forget exactly where it is in the Bible, but it talks about tying a big stone to them and throwing them out in the ocean. That's where people like that belong.
So we've done several stories on drag queens in front of kids, right? And all of a sudden, this has been going on for months and months and months. HBO special, we did one on that. And everybody's like, oh, big deal, leave it alone. It's their kids. And it is a big deal. We've got people locally that are all for this. And we have this in Roanoke, Texas. Now, we just did a story on pedophiles, right? So they're trying to make sure that maps are okay and, everything's good with that because everything's good with the drag queens. And so in Roanoke, Texas, children were handed over to drag queens and they went right into another bar. And we've got a couple of shots here. Not only that, but we have Antifa out there with, rifles, standing guard. What are they going to do? Shoot conservatives if they say something?
One can only assume that that's what they're there for. And, I was really disappointed in the city of Roanoke's response. I saw their little press release that they had put out, and they said, well, we were alerted about this, and after we looked into it, we couldn't find any code violations, so our hands were tied. And they sat there and made all these frickin' excuses for not stopping this grooming of children in a bar with a bunch of drag queens doing a drag queen story time. And I hate to see it from local governments when they say, well, there's nothing we can do. They're not breaking the law. They're having a drag show with kids and alcohol in the same building. Give me a break.
Yeah, and we've seen all that on previous videos we've done. And, great. We're all Second Amendment people here. Carry your pistols, carry your rifles, do what you need to do. But Antifa carrying a rifle, maybe they'll break a nail or something. I don't know. But, to me, those two pictures don't stand together.
Well, and this is Joe Biden's America, too. Every one of those people there, you can guarantee there's not a person in that building or standing out there with Antifa that plans to vote Republican this November.
I've seen probably half a dozen to a dozen photos from this event. I've yet to see one law enforcement in that picture, a picture of law enforcement. Does Roanoke not have a police department? To me, this is a mass gathering of people with armed individuals in public displaying in a threatening manner a weapon. Whether they're within their rights or not is really not the question. The question is, where are the police? Because a situation like this, even if it's completely peaceful and completely legal, you still need to have police on the scene. And the fact that they're not there tells me that Roanoke didn't take it seriously. And they're really lucky something didn't happen.
Well, they really are.
And that's what they said during their press release. They said, we understand that there were people with weapons, but just so everyone knows, you can carry a long gun in Texas as long as it's not threatening. It's like they're sitting there defending a bar where they're serving alcohol reportedly to minors. You got children in there with drag queens, and they're saying they can't do anything and that there's no need to be there. Like you said, John, they should have at least had some level of presence. And that shows you how pathetic the city of Roanoke's police department, or at least their chief of police.
It's not pathetic. What it is it tells me they tacitly approve of it. That's what it really means. They're afraid of the politics and they approve of it. Otherwise, they'd be out there in front of the cameras saying, "No, we're gonna find a legal means to keep kids from being around trannies and booze."
And that's what it is. Keep those kids a legal means of doing it, and at least be there in case one of these wackos does something on Antifa side. And you can rest yourself assured that if it was a MAGA rally and people were walking around with rifles, you'd have a very high police presence, because that will bring them all kinds of negative news. But this, and I haven't seen any pictures. Now, maybe Roanoke PD was out there. I didn't see them. Maybe they were dressed up in the crowd, with the rainbow colors and undercover. Who knows?
I hope somebody can prove us wrong. Mm-hmm. But until then, I look around and I say they weren't there.
But this is what you get with the first story that we did. You start accepting all this crap from drag queens and kids together. Go do it on your own as adults. But you're grooming those kids and you're bringing them in, and woe to the parents that are bringing their kids in there. And then you have this high school teacher with maps. Oh, no, it's okay. We don't judge. That's a we don't judge if people want to have sex with a 5-year-old. Where in the hell did that come from?
That came from the idea that, well, if it doesn't hurt me directly, then it's okay. As long as it doesn't bother me. And I understand the live and let live mentality to a degree, but we have to uphold moral standards in this country. And this is an example of nobody doing that.
Why didn't a principal that day go down to this teacher with this video in hand that obviously was made public pretty quickly, sit down with her and say, I would like for you to explain this to me. Just explain your sentence. I'll give you as long as you need. Okay, you're fired. That's all it should take. And then it should be asking the questions, who put that in your curriculum? Where'd you hear that phrase? Where'd you see that phrase in any of your curriculum? Did your lead tell you that was something we need to talk about in English class today? Let's talk about that. There needs to be a scary investigation into this. A scary for them.
It does. He needs to be gone, like we said, right off the bat. And anybody that helps cover this up, or anybody that thinks it's okay. They need to be gone right alongside with her. So, we've got this kind of moral issue, and we've got Antifa, we've got MAPS, we've got all these drag queen things that we've been talking about for months and months and months. Let's get over from the moral side, the decay of society, and start getting into, and we've talked about WEF, the World Economic Forum, and what they're trying to do throughout the world as far as food supply, monetary things. And, lately we've talked about the Dutch farmers in the Netherlands. And let's listen to this video. We're going to have a couple of videos of what's going on with the food supply.
Why has the Dutch government, a guy called Rutte, the Prime Minister, completely owned by the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, why has he just announced that the Netherlands, the second biggest exporter of food in the world, is targeting farmers to destroy them and get them off the land, which is where all these farming protests in the Netherlands have come from? At a time of food shortages and supply chain problems, you are targeting the second biggest exporter of food in the bloody world to destroy its farming base?
So there you have it. It's all about control. And this started with targeting the energy sector and emissions and things like that. And of course, the farmers went crazy. But this is all about control. The world's second largest exporter of agricultural products. And this is where we're at.
In the last few days, part of the issue with these farmers is they were trying to keep members of the government from coming onto their property to do some testing. And it makes you wonder, what were they testing for? They testing for sewage runoff, or, poisons in the groundwater, or too much cow poop somewhere? No, they're testing for fertilizer levels, because they've set rules on how much fertilizer they can use to grow their crops. It's no longer a matter of how much fertilizer do my crops need to grow the best they can. It's how much fertilizer does Big Daddy government allow me to use? And in the meantime, we're all going to starve.
Let's look at the BBC article. And when they protested, they had hay bales in flames, manure dumped on highways, blockades at supermarket distribution centers, and demonstrations on political doorsteps. So if you don't think this is getting real with the Netherlands and the Dutch farmers, it's coming here. And don't be surprised, it's all about control. And if they control the food supply, guess what? You're going to have to beg, borrow, and steal to get food once they shut it down, right?
One of the ways I look back at this is I say, okay, they're going after control, and they want to control the supply chain. They always talk about that, and energy, and how many workers we have. Where did all that start? All this stuff started with COVID. The supply chain breakdown, we still haven't recovered from where it started in COVID. This is only a continuation of big government, globalist, New World Order, whatever you want to call it, continuing to put the slow squeeze on people that are supposed to be free.
When the United States government, under the Biden regime, how quickly are they going to try to push this stuff on us? Because there's been so many things coming around the pipe that we didn't see necessarily coming right away, that we see now from the Biden administration coming, issue after issue. They're pushing the left-wing agenda to the max right now. So how long is it going to be before we see this same stuff, these kind of controls on us? I mean, we're already in an economic depression or recession, or not, if you listen to the Biden administration. But what else are they going to do? What's the next thing? What's the next leg of the stool they're going to kick out? And I'm afraid they're going to take their cues from Europe.
And they will.
And this is really ties back in here domestically to the Green New Deal. That's what it's all about. They want to stop having cheap energy. They want everyone to be, we can only charge our cars from midnight to 2 a.m. because of the rolling blackouts and the scarcity, because we want to cut out all the carbon emissions, totally ignoring the fact that this planet has been healing itself for at least 6,000 years. And, the human effect on carbon levels and all that stuff is debatable at best.
It's all about the science.
It's all about control. It is all about control. And, it's crazy to think that people like Alex Jones have been screaming about this for decades now, and it's really starting to come back around.
Is it just a crazy coincidence that we're like on the verge, or it seems, of a global food shortage? And here in the United States, we've been having an unprecedented number of food manufacturing facilities, animal processing facilities destroyed by fire, arson, shutting down for unknown reasons. A bacterial scare that should have shut them down for 24 hours or shut down for months at a time. Is this all coincidence, or maybe, I don't know, is there like some coordination, I don't know, with the World Economic Forum?
Well, the FDA is involved, and they can't open up until then.
And I've heard that the government in some industries, depending on what kind of crop you're growing, is now incentivizing people to, instead of harvest those crops, to destroy them. And for the farmers who are hurting already, it is in their economic best interest for themselves if the government says, hey, we'll give you double or triple what you would get by harvesting if you just destroy them.
And you do, and you talked about the Green New Deal, and that's what's going on with the Dutch farmers. And they're talking about the green farms. And the Dutch government proposals for, tackling, and they call it the nitrogen emissions, to cut the livestock radically. They estimate that 11,200 farms will have to close. That's 11,200 farms. And another 17,600 farmers will have to significantly reduce their livestock. That is a lot of farms and a lot of livestock because they want green farms.
Another way to look at that is to say they don't want us to keep eating meat. They want us to eat bugs and eat dirt and be happy and own nothing and be at their,
plant-based meat or whatever they call it.
Yeah, and it's like I saw this deal a while back where someone found a cricket in a thing of mixed vegetables or whatever, and it's like that kind of stuff happens, but it got me thinking, there's been a running joke or a meme for a while that they want us to all sit around and eat bugs and be poor and to kill the middle class and to kill the American dream and to take our freedoms. And it's hard to deny when you look at the way things have shaken out the last few years. It's hard to deny that that's their goal.
Right. Well, I also hate to say it, that this is not just a problem with big government. So many times now, especially, your big business is bowing to big government and becoming really an arm of big government. I actually talked to a local farmer in really the last week or so, and he said at the latest national farm equipment show that he attended, he said he couldn't believe it. You could almost not find a gasoline-powered tractor being advertised at this show because it's all their electric tractors now is all they're pushing. And I'm thinking to myself, who is clamoring for an electric tractor? Who is clamoring for an electric chainsaw? Who really is clamoring for an electric anything at this point, given the prices of electricity and the rolling blackouts that we're having in the major cities in the United States right now?
The people that are pushing the Great Reset.
Yeah,
right,
and when you talk about electric, remember, it's battery operated.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you got to plug it in, and you either need natural gas, coal, or oil to run those things, and generators and everything else.
But what about wind and solar?
Yeah, that's very reliable.
Can't we just do it all on that and pixie dust and unicorn tears?
Yeah, and the farmers can just kind of wait a few weeks if you have rain and nothing gets recharged and they can't use a outlet that requires natural gas or diesel or oil. And then you have Natasha Olemans, I guess, and she's the Netherlands WWF, not fighter, but in the Netherlands, farmers need to use nature as an ally, and that means having fewer cows and fewer pigs. How in the heck are you going to use nature as an ally, but take out nature as your cows and your pigs are breeding?
It doesn't have to make sense. They just say whatever they need to say, and they wrap it in a nice, pretty bow, and they make it sound agreeable, but it's like anyone with any base of critical thinking skill says, what the hell is wrong with this lady?
Well, it's like you just said, Nate. From every turn and every angle, anything we considered normal, regular, expected 40 years ago is now foreign. And, the idea that I can go home right now and just sit down and eat a steak, that offends. That offends a lot of the left. And so they're going to try to pour this crap down our throats. And they're going to use the WEF, and they're going to use the UN, and they're going to use the federal government, unfortunately, to push this junk down our throats. And it's really going to be up to us standing up with our local officials, our state level officials, and saying no.
And we look at this and you go, what the heck? What are you worried about the Netherlands and the Dutch farmers for? And But you got to look at it. It's the world's second largest exporter of agricultural products. So that's going to make a dent. While here in the United States, our agriculture, they're going to start killing that too, just like they did oil and gas. And we're going to wind up in the same boat that the Dutch farmers are in.
And we're all part of Western civilization. When you're talking Europe, Australia, the United States, Canada, we're all part of Western civilization. And like it or not, whatever they're doing over in Europe, they try to start doing here. Whatever they start doing in California, the liberal enclave, they try to start pushing in Texas. We have to keep an eye on what's going on globally, because on a long enough timeline, they're going to try that crap here, and it'll be up to us to stop.
Well, in a lot of ways, it's already here, and it's been here. 20 years ago, I remember news reports about, people producing raw milk being raided by the federal government and, ticketed for $100,000 and shut down for daring to sell raw milk without asking permission from Big Daddy federal government. Well, just last week, I heard about a Amish farmer who was shut down and fined $300,000 because he wasn't following some obscure FDA rules. And his response was, well, you know what? I've been doing this for over a generation on this farm, and we've always gotten a religious exemption, and they've never said a word to us. Why now all of a sudden are we getting a $300,000 charge and being shut down? It's called the American version of WEF.
Yeah, Green New Deal.
That's right.
And just wait. I'm sure that the 87,000 new IRS agents will have something to do with a lot of companies and a lot of businesses being shut down or having to pay more where they can't afford it, and they'll have to close on their own.
And that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to take out all their small competitors. And when you look at how much money the giant food producers in the United States lobby their Congress and lobby state legislatures with, they do all that to keep these regulations in place. And while they like to pretend they don't like the regulations, they know they can afford to put up with it, but a lot of the small guys can't. And from the government's perspective, or these totalitarian control freaks' perspective, they want as few people as possible to have in their pocket to keep that level of control. We're moving closer to that, and you got to wonder, when's the breaking point?
Back several years ago, the federal government came out and told apparently all cattle farmers, or at least they were testing it then, that they were going to have to tag every one of their animals with an independent tag, and each animal had to be tagged. And all these independent producers were like, we can't afford these tags. They're going to bankrupt us. And at the same time, the independent producers said, why is it you come to us and say each one of our cattle have to be individually marked under a certain number of cattle, but when I become a huge agribusiness and I have hundreds of thousands of head, I can just get a license for my entire site and I don't have to do it. And it's much cheaper per head for the huge agribusiness companies to get their site license as opposed to the people who are doing a small operation individually tagging. It is literally, it's been here and it's just going to get worse. It is the WEF and the Green New Deal, all the stuff that we thought was crazy, it is crazy, but the same things, the same ideas, the same thought processes have been affecting our federal policy for generations. It's just now becoming really in our face.
I think it's hyperized. It's sped up so much now that we have Biden in office, and it's starting to shove down to the state levels. And you just wait. Once it gets down to the local levels, we'll have so-called Republicans bending over doing it for the almighty dollar. So, they're going to go the government way, not the individual way.
And, just to give our viewers a little bit of hope, if you live on any sort of land, whether it's like a half acre, an acre, and especially if you're in a county, buy you some chickens. Start trying to find ways to grow a little bit of your own food.
Yep.
Yeah. And start practicing now, because I fear that on a long enough timeline, maybe even just here in the next few years, we're going to be in a bad place when it comes to food scarcity. And if we have people that can take care of themselves a little bit, we'll all be better off.
Well, we don't have to worry about, fighting against the federal government for doing something crazy, or for making a law that none of us can stand, or for doing something blatantly unconstitutional, like, throwing all Republicans in jail. They're not going to have to fight if they're starving us, because starving people will do whatever they're told to do.
Yeah, that's that control we talked about.
They can build camps, they can do whatever, and most people are going to do it, because most people can't do any level of subsistence on their own. And when you're starving, and when your baby's doesn't have food, you're going to do whatever Big Daddy federal government tells you to do. So today is the day to get something on growing your own vegetables, growing your own food, because you don't want to be the person who has to make that choice between your freedom and keeping your children alive.
And then you take that with the food and you do it with the economic system that they're trying to crash right now and make one world order. And, you can talk about conspiracy theories all day long, but all you have to do is look this up for yourself.
Well, look at
this is occurring right now.
History tells us that whenever the Soviet Union, for example, they got to where some of their satellites, they would starve their satellites, their food-producing satellites, and take all that food over into Russia. And that's what happens. And you think they're not going to do that to rural Texas? You are outside your mind, because the political dissidents are in places like rural Texas or Oklahoma or Nebraska or North Dakota or Montana. They will do that same thing here with history as an indicator.
And you talk about political dissidents, and you talk about, you mentioned the Republicans going after the Republicans, and that's right in front of us too. Let's look at Karine Jean-Pierre, and she's doing a press release, a press conference, and let's look at what she says and kind of remember what we just talked about with the pedophiles, the drag queens, the WEF, the Green New Deal, all this stuff with the farmers, and see where Joe Biden's government is continually going.
The president thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear as he can be on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that he sees is the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights.
So we have an extreme threat per Biden and per the White House press secretary, extreme threat to democracy, extreme threats to our rights and our freedoms by MAGA-loving Republicans.
That is projection at its finest, isn't it?
Whew, Mike, you've been a man who's been involved in and out of government most of your adult life. When a representative of a government comes out and calls a certain segment of society in extreme danger to the government or to democracy, and their government is a democracy, or at least they think it is, what are they really saying? What are they setting everybody up for?
They're setting everybody up to go after him, to target him, just like they did Trump at his, this latest deal. And they're going to start doing that to citizens. And they already told you. They told you who they're going after. They're going after Republicans, and they're going after Trump supporters. So be prepared. This isn't something that it's like, oh, she didn't say that, she didn't mean it. She meant exactly what she said. This was given to her by Biden and all the speechwriters. So they're coming after you and me and everybody else that's conservative. And just look at the stories we did today beforehand. And if you think that we're wrong, your head's in the sand.
I think what she said is a very dangerous thing for a government to be saying. It's irresponsible, completely irresponsible. Not even talking about right or wrong. It is completely irresponsible what she just said.
Well, and, she said the MAGA Republicans. Newsflash, the Republican Party is the MAGA Republicans. You look at the last cycle of primaries, I think there's still a few states left that haven't done them. The MAGA Republicans are the ones that are winning. The America First Republicans are the ones that are winning. The Republicans that have a spine are the ones that are winning. And even those weaklings that we have up and down the party are starting to see the writing on the wall as it comes to a lot of these social issues. And, she basically just declared war on half the country.
Yes, she did, and which is why I think that's a very irresponsible statement. And I echo what you said. The Republican Party, the Republican Party that's going to exist 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 50 years from now is the MAGA Republican Party, or what comes out of that. This rhino milquetoast stuff, that is the Republican Party of 1980s. It's the Lindsey Graham, it's the Mitt Romney, it's the John McCain. You are yesterday's Republicans. Go be a Democrat now, because that's not who the Republican Party is today. And so if you're going to call essentially half or more of your nation extremists, you need to be careful how you're talking.
And, to all the MAGA Republicans out there, get ready for the fight, because it is coming.
People need to go back and watch that clip of the White House press secretary and see how important this is. They are telling you to your face that you are an extreme threat to democracy, freedom, and rights. So right now, they are taking over the government from the Republican Party and telling you that you are extremist. One group of individuals, the Republican Party, and she could say MAG all she wants. But we've got the Republican Party. You are now extremist in the eyes of the Biden government. And it's publicly said, so now you have to deal with it.